You think you understand why rent is so expensive? Supply and demand, right? Too many people, not enough apartments. The market sets the price, and you just have to deal with it. That's the story they want you to believe. But it's a lie. Your rent isn't high because of natural market forces. It's high because scarcity has been manufactured. Two powerful systems work together to keep housing artificially expensive. Zoning laws that make affordable housing illegal, and corporate landlords who treat your home like a stock portfolio. Today, we're exposing this two-pillar system that's designed to trap you in permanent rent payments. You'll learn exactly how the game is rigged and what tactics you can use to fight back.
Let's start with the biggest scam in American housing: zoning laws that literally make it illegal to build affordable homes. Drive through any American suburb and you'll see endless rows of single-family houses on large lots. Looks normal, right? What you're actually seeing is a legal ban on affordability. Most American cities zone the majority of their residential land exclusively for single-family homes. That means developers legally cannot build apartments, condos, duplexes, or townhouses in these areas. They can only build expensive detached houses. This isn't about preserving neighborhood character. It's about economic exclusion. By forcing developers to build only the most expensive type of housing, cities artificially restrict supply to protect existing homeowners' property values. Here's how the scam works. Let's say you have a plot of land that could fit one single-family house. That same plot could also fit a duplex housing 2 families or a small apartment building housing 6 families. But zoning laws say no, only one expensive house allowed. This pushes all the housing demand into the small areas where apartments are legal, usually just the downtown core. Imagine trying to fit all the housing demand for an entire metropolitan area into just a few neighborhoods. Prices explode. The economic impact is massive. When you can only build one house per lot instead of multiple units, you've artificially reduced housing supply by 75% or more. Basic economics tells you what happens next. Prices skyrocket. But here's the really insidious part. This system eliminates starter homes and middle housing. The apartments and small homes that young people could actually afford simply cannot be built in most neighborhoods. Zoning laws force a false choice. Either buy an expensive single-family house or rent forever. There's no middle ground because the middle ground has been legislated out of existence. The political machine that maintains this system is called NIMBY, not in my backyard. Existing homeowners show up to city council meetings to oppose any new housing development. They claim they're protecting their neighborhood, but they're really protecting their property values. Here's their playbook. Whenever someone proposes building apartments or condos, NIMBYs flood city meetings with complaints about traffic, parking, and neighborhood character. They demand environmental impact studies, historic preservation reviews, and community input sessions. They bury affordable housing projects in bureaucratic red tape until developers give up. This is regulatory capture in action. The people who benefit from artificial scarcity have captured the political process that could fix it. Homeowners vote in local elections at much higher rates than renters, so their voices dominate housing policy. The result is a system where affordable housing projects take years to approve if they get approved at all. Meanwhile, expensive single-family houses get rubber-stamped through the approval process. Some cities are starting to wake up. Minneapolis eliminated single-family zoning citywide, allowing duplexes and triplexes in every neighborhood. Early results show more housing construction and stabilizing rents. But most cities still maintain the zoning scam. They'll hold press conferences about the housing crisis while simultaneously making it illegal to build the housing that would solve it. The zoning trap creates artificial scarcity that forces you into bad financial decisions. When affordable housing is illegal to build, you're stuck choosing between expensive rent or an expensive mortgage. Either way, housing eats up a massive portion of your income, leaving less money for wealth building. This is exactly what the system wants. When housing costs consume most of your paycheck, you can't save money, invest in the stock market,
or start a business. You're trapped in a cycle where your biggest expense prevents you from building the wealth you'd need to escape it. The zoning scam isn't just about housing policy. It's about keeping an entire generation financially dependent on landlords and mortgage lenders. The artificial scarcity isn't a bug in the system, it's the feature.
So let's talk about corporate landlords. While zoning laws create artificial scarcity, corporate landlords exploit it. After the 2008 housing crash, Wall Street discovered a new gold mine: your monthly rent check. Here's what happened. When millions of families lost their homes to foreclosure, institutional investors swooped in with cash offers. Companies like Invitation Homes, originally formed by Blackstone, didn't buy a few houses here and there. They bought entire subdivisions. These weren't emotional purchases by families looking for a home. These were calculated investments by algorithms looking for yield. Wall Street had found a way to turn the American dream into a rental income stream. The scale was unprecedented. In some neighborhoods in Atlanta, Phoenix, and Las Vegas, single companies now own huge portions of all the homes. Imagine trying to buy a house when one corporation already owns a third of the neighborhood and has zero intention of selling. This corporate takeover follows a three-step strategy designed to maximize your rent payments. Step 1. Reduce supply. By converting starter homes from for-sale inventory to rental-only inventory, they permanently shrink the number of homes available for purchase. This drives up home prices, which justifies higher rents. It's a feedback loop where corporate ownership makes both buying and renting more expensive. Step 2. Optimize rent extraction. Corporate landlords don't set rents based on local market conditions or what you can afford. They use algorithmic pricing software that analyzes thousands of data points to squeeze every possible dollar from every unit. These algorithms know your income, your credit score, your rental history, and your alternatives. They calculate exactly how much you'll pay before you'll move somewhere else. Then, they charge you that amount. This isn't your local landlord making gut decisions. This is artificial intelligence designed to maximize rent extraction from human beings who need shelter. Step 3. Monopolize maintenance. In a scarce market, corporate landlords can cut maintenance costs to the bone because you have limited alternatives. Your air conditioning breaks in summer? Too bad. The company knows you probably can't find another apartment quickly, so they can take their time fixing it. They've industrialized the landlord-tenant relationship. Your home maintenance requests go through call centers, automated systems, and cost-benefit algorithms. If fixing your problem costs more than the risk of you moving out, they simply won't fix it. But the financialization goes even deeper. Your rent payments don't just go to corporate landlords, they get packaged into rental-backed securities and sold to investors on Wall Street. Corporate landlords also use cash offers to price out individual buyers. When you're competing against a corporation that can close in 7 days with no financing contingencies, you lose. They can afford to overpay for houses because they're not buying homes. They're buying income streams. Here's the most insidious part: strategic vacancy. Corporate landlords will keep units empty rather than lower rents. An empty apartment that maintains high rent comps for the neighborhood is more valuable than a rented apartment at below market rates. They've calculated that artificial scarcity through vacancy generates more profit than filling every unit. Your housing shortage is literally manufactured by keeping homes empty. The corporate takeover of housing isn't just changing your rent payment, it's changing the entire relationship between Americans and home ownership. What was once a path to building wealth has become a mechanism for extracting wealth. Wall Street has figured out how to turn your basic human need for shelter into a financial instrument. Your home isn't your castle anymore, it's their portfolio. This fact combines with zoning restrictions to create a perfect storm. Artificial scarcity from zoning laws gives corporate landlords pricing power.
Corporate ownership reduces the supply of homes for sale. Together, they've created a system designed to keep you paying rent forever. The game is rigged, but understanding how it works is your first step towards fighting back.
Now let's talk about what this manufactured scarcity does to your brain. The housing system isn't just expensive, it's psychologically designed to keep you trapped in bad financial decisions. When rent consumes a massive chunk of your income, it triggers something called the reverse Diderot effect. You buy a new phone, then suddenly your laptop looks outdated, so you upgrade that too. One purchase cascades into more purchases. High rent creates the opposite problem. Because your housing payment is so enormous, it forces you to downgrade everything else. You can't afford the nice furniture, the good food, or the weekend trips. Your rent payment creates a constant state of financial compromise. This leads to financial fatigue. When one expense dominates your budget so completely, you stop caring about smaller expenses. Why bother saving $5 on coffee when you're already losing hundreds to artificially inflated rent? The big expense makes all your other financial decisions feel meaningless. Financial fatigue connects directly to the paradox of thrift. This economic concept explains why individual saving behavior can backfire. When everyone tries to save money simultaneously, reduced spending hurts the overall economy, which eventually hurts individual savers through job losses and wage cuts. But manufactured housing scarcity creates a personal version of this paradox. When your rent is so high that you can only save tiny amounts, those small savings feel pointless. If you are paying $2,500 monthly for rent, saving $200 feels like trying to fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon. So, you stop saving. You stop investing. The system psychologically discourages wealth-building behaviors because the math feels impossible. Why save for a house down payment when home prices rise faster than your savings rate? This creates learned helplessness about home ownership. You start believing that buying a house is simply impossible for people like you. The artificial scarcity makes homeownership seem like a privilege reserved for previous generations or wealthy families. The psychological trap goes deeper. High housing costs trigger the sunk cost fallacy in your rental decisions. You know this concept from our previous video about forcing yourself through terrible movies because you already bought the ticket. With housing, you'll stay in overpriced apartments or bad neighborhoods because you've already invested so much in security deposits, moving costs, and lease commitments. Moving feels like admitting failure and wasting money, even when staying costs more in the long run. The system exploits this psychological bias. Landlords know that once you've moved in and paid deposits, you're psychologically anchored to that location. They can raise rents incrementally because moving triggers the sunk cost fallacy in your brain. Corporate landlords specifically design lease terms to maximize this psychological trap. Short-term leases with automatic renewals, non-refundable fees, and complex moving requirements all make leaving feel more expensive than staying. The manufactured scarcity also creates a personal failure narrative that masks systemic problems. When housing costs consume most of your income, you blame yourself for not earning enough or not saving better. You internalize a problem that was created by policy and corporate strategy. This psychological manipulation is intentional. The housing system needs you to believe that your financial struggles are personal failures rather than systemic extraction. If you understood that your high rent was manufactured through zoning laws and corporate ownership, you might demand political solutions. Instead, you're encouraged to focus on individual responsibility. Work more hours, get better skills, cut more expenses. The system wants you solving personal problems instead of recognizing systemic ones. The psychological cost of manufactured scarcity extends beyond money. It affects your life decisions, career choices, and family planning. When housing is artificially expensive, you delay marriage, postpone having children, and avoid career risks that might improve your long-term prospects. Understanding these psychological traps is crucial for fighting back. Once you recognize that the scarcity is manufactured, you can start making decisions based on systemic reality rather than artificial constraints.
So, what do you do when the system is rigged against you? You can't fix zoning laws overnight, and you can't force BlackRock to sell their houses. But you can protect yourself from the worst effects of the housing scarcity illusion. Here's your complete defensive playbook. First, reject the personal responsibility narrative. Your financial struggle with housing isn't a moral failing. It's an economic consequence of policy and financial engineering. Stop blaming yourself for not saving enough when the system is designed to prevent you from saving. This mental shift is crucial because guilt makes you a worse negotiator. When you believe you deserve high rent because you haven't worked hard enough, you accept bad deals. When you understand that scarcity is manufactured, you approach rental negotiations with appropriate skepticism. Second, master rental market timing. Most people rent when they need to move, but smart renters hunt when landlords are desperate. Winter months, especially January and February, are when landlords struggle to find tenants. College towns empty out after graduation. Holiday seasons see reduced apartment hunting. During these slow periods, you have real negotiating power. Landlords would rather accept slightly lower rent than deal with vacancy costs. A unit sitting empty for 2 months costs more than a small rent reduction for a full year. Third, negotiate like an investor, not a desperate renter. Your landlord treats this as a business transaction, so should you. Come prepared with comparable rental data from similar properties in the area. Present this information professionally, not emotionally. Ask for rent reductions in exchange for longer lease terms. Landlords value stability and hate the costs of finding new tenants. Offer to handle minor maintenance yourself in exchange for lower monthly rent. Propose automatic renewal clauses that benefit both parties. Corporate landlords especially respond to market rate comparisons because their algorithms are designed around data. If you can prove that similar units rent for less, their pricing software will often adjust your rate accordingly. Fourth, understand the real cost of moving. Every apartment change involves security deposits, application fees, moving costs, utility connections, and time off work. These expenses easily reach thousands of dollars. Factor this into your rent negotiations. Sometimes paying slightly higher rent beats the total cost of moving. Calculate the break-even point where higher rent becomes cheaper than relocation expenses. Use this math in negotiations to justify staying at current rates. Fifth, build leverage through lease terms. Landlords hate vacancy more than slightly lower rent. Empty units generate zero income while still incurring maintenance, insurance, and property tax costs. Use your reliability as a tenant to negotiate better terms. If you've paid rent on time and caused no problems, you're valuable. Highlight your track record during negotiations. Good tenants save landlords money on management, repairs, and legal costs. The key to all these tactics is approaching housing strategically rather than desperately. Treat it like the business transaction it is. The landlords certainly do. Remember, these individual tactics work best alongside systemic change. Your personal defense against housing scarcity is important, but the real solution requires fixing the policies that create artificial scarcity in the first place.
Your housing costs are not a reflection of your personal worth or financial discipline. They're the result of decades of policy choices designed to benefit existing homeowners and corporate landlords at your expense. The zoning laws that make affordable housing illegal, the corporate ownership that treats your home like a stock portfolio, and the psychological traps that make you blame yourself for systemic problems. None of this is your fault. Understanding the housing scarcity illusion is your first step toward fighting it. Knowledge breaks the psychological hold that manufactured scarcity has over your financial decisions and life choices. Subscribe for more breakdowns of how financial systems really work, because the more you understand the game, the better you can play it.